Good to be with you. I'm excited to share a bit of what is possible with project management in Teams, combining its native functionality, things like chat and meetings and files that you're probably familiar with its extensibility, which is apps in Teams, means that pretty much every project manager can be armed with the tools they need to be more productive and efficient and collaborative and impactful. So let me start with this. I want to give some context here. Most project managers have a handful of goals, and they probably sound something like this. Let's complete those projects on time and on budget. Let's collaborate across teams and geographies. Let's stay updated on traction impact, and then share best practices and knowledge. If you do those four, you're doing an awesome job. And to do these things, we have a handful of tactics as project managers. And they usually look like conducting meetings, sharing updates, reviewing those tasks and action items, and then creating processes to align those resources and people. Today, in our time together, we're going to talk about how to up-level these tactics here on the right and make it easier to achieve your goals. And before we go too far, I want to give one visual to set the stage here. This will frame everything I present, and it gives you an idea of how to think about teams in the context of project-based work or project management. And everything starts with the people. The team is the core unit of work. Around the people, we have a layer of communication in Teams, which is the chat, meeting, and calling that I mentioned earlier. And around that, Teams brings O365 applications for collaboration. And those are files of all types to move ideas forward. And around that, one last layer is that Teams can integrate with hundreds of other software applications. So these are tools and systems that appear as apps in Teams, and they add context to your work, and they can drive action and greater speed. So just to summarize this, in the context of Microsoft Teams, we've got the people, the communication, the collaboration, and then the external systems all coming together to help you do more work and better work. So getting into today's topic, we're going to walk through a single project from kickoff to completion. Usually people think of project management as just one step, which is create the plan. I think we often focus on just the planning portion, assigning tasks. But there's so much more to the process if you're going to succeed. Take a look at this. We've got to set up the environment. Then we make the plan. We've got to check in with stakeholders regularly. We're going to monitor progress, throughout, and we're going to share knowledge. So this diagram, we call it the project life cycle. You'll see this throughout our workshop today. And let's just keep an eye on where we are in the process. Okay, so we'll start with this first one, set up the environment. This is a hugely important first step because it sets the scaffolding on which all of your people and processes work. If the environment isn't set up correctly, you might be wasting time with kind of taping together ad hoc tools in the middle of key activities. Things like migrating data from one system to another. You might slow down to get the right stakeholders up to speed in an extra meeting or two. And you might feel really scattered because you're using too many tools, there's files all over the place, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. So these are the dangers here if you don't set up the environment correctly. In setting up the environment, you want to think about 4 ingredients here. These are the right ingredients to think about in Teams. First is the people, the teams and the channels. Next is the meetings, then the files, and lastly, the apps, those applications or integrations in Teams. So here we go. I'm going to show you a lot of demos today. So let me pull this up. You can see what I mean here. Make this even bigger. Maybe even zoom in for you. Perfect. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the people piece, like I mentioned. That's the first ingredient. So you're going to want to create a team if it's not already created. And for this one, I'm going to make it public, and I'm going to call it the marketing team. When I create that team, it gives me the option to add teammates. And this is a great opportunity for me to add the right people. I'll add Adele and Alex and Grady and so on. So these are some of my internal teammates, but it's also a great opportunity to add outsiders, external guests. So let me add Jane, at vendor.com. So it tries to look up Jane. She doesn't exist, so let's add her as a guest. She might be a marketing agency or a contract designer for this marketing project, and I want her involved in this type of collaboration. So let's add her as well. So luckily, I've actually made this team already. I'm going to show you what it looks like here. The marketing team is ready to go. I've even set up some channels. And once I have the right people in there, I want to make sure the channels are set up around purpose. So, our budgeting, our design, a promo campaign that's coming up. Getting the people aligned around purpose is really important, and that's kind of how channels are intended. So once I have those people set up, there's probably a handful of apps I want to add right from the start. And the reason why is they're going to align perfectly to the purpose of that channel. So here's an example. And apps, if you're not familiar, they can appear as bots over in chat. So I can chat with an application and show you that in a bit. They might show up as tabs. So if you're in a team, maybe there's a tab that is powered by an app. And there's even these things called message extensions that bring context to a message. Apps can appear there as well. You'll see me poke around those different endpoints throughout today's workshop, but just wanted to let you know that you can get these apps in the App Store from Microsoft or third parties. They might be free in many cases, or you might use an existing enterprise license if it's a common tool already in place within your org. And a few require extra licenses as well. And just call it out that you should work with your team and your IT group to decide which apps you'd like to use. All right, so here, let's go. I'll actually go to the App Store. This is a great example for a marketing project that I'm working on. I'm going to type in Bing, and there's this app called Bing News. I can add it to a team, and I actually already did, and I can show you how it works. So Bing News is going to pull in information about a specific topic. And it's actually doing it for me every morning at around 8 a.m. And every morning, I'm actually looking for news related to Twitter. You can see what's going on. Maybe they're a competitor, or maybe I work for Twitter. I just want to keep an eye on those news articles. So this is a great way of using an app to bring context to this channel. I actually have it here in public relations, which is probably the more appropriate place to be pulling in that news. So that's one example of an app perfectly aligned to the channel's purpose. Let me show you another one. Let's go to design. So here I can actually, this is where I'm going to be collaborating maybe with my design contractor. I probably want to pull in some files from Adobe Creative Cloud. And so you can see I've actually connected it already, and it can pull some of these illustrations we've been working on for an upcoming campaign. So great example of using an app to bring context to this channel. You can see it right here. This is the one that we're talking about. We need to figure out whether this is the right illustration. It's right there for us to collaborate around. So that's an example of an app showing up as a tab here. And then one more I wanted to show you, which was relevant for our budgeting channel, is I've grabbed this app called Template Chooser. And what they can do is anytime I have a budget request or NDAs or reports, I, as the project manager, can put them all in one place for my teammates to use. It saves a lot of time. It snaps them to a common format. So I would love to be using that to kind of keep everyone in sync and using the same templates. So those are just three examples of once I've got the people set up and the channels set up, I might power a few of them with these app experiences. And just remember, if you don't have one of these apps in your organization's version of Teams, your admin might have blocked it, but there are often workarounds. I'll point a few of them out. So don't be alarmed if you're not seeing some of these. All right, I also said that we should set up files. So let's go to this fall social promo channel. And let's jump into the files here. This is a great example where right out the gate, I want to create a couple of folders. I know we're going to be talking about press releases and some social copy and reports and maybe the schedule. So I set those folders up right out of the gate to keep everyone organized. One thing I can do is I can also add new files or upload them to make this kind of my source of truth for the project. And one of the things I love, I just created, you can see about an hour ago, I created this design review notes document. And one thing that's really neat is I can actually turn that into a tab. So I'm going to add a tab, click on Word. It's going to look at this, and here it is, design review notes. And I'm going to post to the channel about the tab so everyone can see that there's a new note about the design review that we should all be chatting about. This is the design review related to the social promo. So what's cool here is when I added this, I can actually have a side conversation about this document. And I can do things like, hey, Patty, can you add the latest review notes here? Okay, awesome. When I go back into the main dialogue, you can see it's actually a threaded conversation about that. And so as you add content as tabs, you can have these little side conversations, and it brings some richness and extra collaboration to files. Cool, so that's it on files. You could see, create the right folders, pin them when it makes sense, and you can, again, have collaboration, kind of micro collaborations around those. The last thing I wanted to call out is meetings. So everyone does meetings differently, but one thing that's worth considering is the channel meeting. So check this out. There's a handful of us in this marketing project that we're trying to get together around something urgent. I can hit this meet button right here at the top. Meet now. You can see there I am. And this conversation, I'm going to have. Let's see, I'm going to grab some files and maybe drop those in. You can see I can pull that from right here. Maybe we're going to collaborate around a form or some notes. But this is a great way, and I can show you really quick. I'm not going to leave this meeting. It'll just minimize it. There's a little icon here on this channel saying that there's a meeting happening, and anyone who comes to it can join. So great way of kind of having an open door and getting everyone in on that call. Don't forget that, this is critical for project management. We've got to record. We're going to get a transcription. If I forget to take notes, sometimes I'll go back to that transcription and drop it in the notes. So there's a bunch of stuff I can do here. I can even add OneNote if I wanted to add my notes there for our minutes. So yeah, don't forget that the meeting is like a critical moment, and you can do them in kind of an impromptu fashion or a very planned fashion, and whatever fits your workflow. So that is the summary on people, files, apps, meetings in one place, and yeah, this is a great kind of first step in getting a project off the ground. It's going to help you address kind of this top challenge that we're hearing of having too many communication channels, because everything is going to be in the same hub and it's organized by purpose. All right, let's move on to phase 2 here. Phase 2 is about creating that project plan, and most project managers jump straight to this step. It's a critical one, but don't forget it's one of 5 steps up here. And project planning has a lot of facets to it. You've got the budgeting and the task management and managing a third party like our agency. I'm going to show you 2 tools that you can use in teams that will help you create this project plan and stay organized. The 2 are Trello, which is from Atlassian, and Planner from Microsoft. They have a very similar experience setting deadlines, assigning task owners, and so on. And then after showing you those two, you'll get to see a cool little whiteboarding experience too. All right, let me end that channel meeting. Forgot to do that. All right, so in event planning, you can see I've got two things here. I'm going to start off with the conference planning channel. Log in really fast. So this is the Trello experience, and Trello will start me off with a Kanban board, which is a kind of a common format. And so once this renders, you'll see kind of the buckets, and I've sorted them by to do, doing, and done. So take a look at this. There they are, to do, doing, and done, and I've got need support. This is a very common kind of project management view. Again, this is the Kanban view, and I can move tasks around. As I complete them, I'll mark them complete, maybe move them through this funnel. Within a specific item, let's look at send invitations, I can add labels, set my deadlines, add attachments. I can do all kinds of things. And so this is kind of a rich canvas for me to make those adjustments. Another thing I can do is actually switch to the calendar view, which can be really helpful if I just wanted to visualize, when is stuff happening in a timeline. So here you have it. That's a quick snapshot of Trello. Again, you want to use Trello just like you would a CRM, where the cleaner your data, the more efficient things will be. So use the tools that are at your fingertips. Planner over here is very similar. You'll see I actually sorted this one a little bit differently. It's in 1 week sprints. And so I've got, complete, an active, and an upcoming sprint. And very similar, I can drag these cards around as I move on or something's delayed. Let me actually show you this one. This one has a nice little sub checklist, some things that I needed to do to get this entire thing done. And yeah, again, very similar. I can add these labels to stay organized. And I'm guessing many of you have been exposed to Planner in some way or another. So one last thing I wanted to call out that's kind of critical to this, this planning stage. Again, a reminder, we're on Create a Project Plan. It's been pretty tough to do virtually. And so my team, we're a bunch of PMs. We do regular whiteboarding. It's a little tougher to do virtually, but we use a digital whiteboard. A good example of one is called Freehand. I have it right here. And Freehand has been a great way for us to visualize when we're planning something out. A bunch of us can jump in at the same time, and we can start moving around our diagrams. You can see I can add, drawings, text. I can add images and shapes, building relationships. I can even add little sticky notes. Do this thing. So a great kind of free canvas for me to collaborate on when we're working on that plan and figuring out maybe the steps in the process or our dependencies. Really helpful to have this. And I suggest exploring. There's a handful of different virtual whiteboards, but this has been a fun one for us to use. All right, one last comment on this step, which is there are a bunch of tools you can use. I showed you two, but maybe you're using Smartsheet, Wrike, Asana, Priority Matrix. There's a bunch for you to choose from. I think about it like shopping. You're going to want to just test them out, see what fits best for you. All right, stage 3 here. We've set up our team's environment. We've created a project plan. Things are underway, and this is where the rubber meets the road. We're going to need to keep our teammates on task to hit our deadlines. And we have a lot of dependencies on each other. And one of the keys to using teams productively in this stage is to set up multiple feedback loops. Here's a few to consider: regular stand-up meetings, ad hoc meetings, feedback from customers or partners or other stakeholders. And if you've got a good loop going with these, you're going to be a lot more likely to be on budget, on time, and the dominoes are going to kind of fall correctly. So, and you'll also know when to course correct. So let me pull up, I've got one other demo that's very relevant right here on those topics. I'll zoom in one more time. So let's start with stand-ups. We use stand-ups to build transparency and to unblock each other early when we run into obstacles. So there's a ton of ways to execute them, but one pretty neat way is an app called Agile Poly. So here's how it works. The first thing that I'll do is I'll add it as a tab, and I can create a stand-up. So if I hit create, check this out, I can enter the team name. I'll say this is marketing. How are you doing today on your work? The audience is this channel that I'm in. I want to send this stand-up meeting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at, let's do it at 9:30 in the morning. And I'll give my teammates 3 hours to send their update and notify them an hour before it closes. They've got some great default questions. What did you accomplish since the last check-in? What are you working on next? And are there any issues blocking your progress? If you are blocked, how can we resolve that? It seems so simple, but these 3 questions, I'll show you a preview really fast, can just keep me up to date on everyone else that I'm relying on. It's just an awesome little virtual stand-up. I have that going already, and you can see these come in, and this is from yesterday. No one replied, but this gives you an example of how it would appear in the channel. And I can actually use Agile Poly. If I go into here, I can see the historical responses, kind of see how my team is doing, who's getting blocked, and so on. So another feedback to consider are ad hoc meetings, and these can be a nightmare to schedule when you have agencies, a large team, people in different time zones. And one way you can tackle this is with an app called CalendarBot. Check this out. There are 20 people in this team and channel, and man, it's been tough to schedule everyone. So I added this tab from CalendarBot, and it's going to look at everyone's calendars. You can see everyone listed here, and it's looking across time zones and everything, and it's found a handful of open times for us all to meet. So helpful. So I can create a really quick meeting with these openings. I'm going to shoot for Thursday at 4 o'clock, and boom, I can set up and even include the Teams link so everyone can join. That is so helpful, just this view in the tab. If I'm in a real bind, there might be times where I actually say, hey, CalendarBot, I need a meeting right now. And so it's a bot, and I can actually ask it, hey, I need to schedule now. What are the next handful of times that everyone's free? In the background, it's looking at everyone's, all 19 people's calendars, doing some calculations, and it comes back with the 3 next available times in the next 2 weeks. So I can just add my title, urgent marketing meeting, a description, click a button, and all those invites go out. Super, super helpful for a project manager like me that's really busy and I have a lot of people to get in an urgent meeting. I would do something like this. And then lastly, I want to show you how we use forms in Teams. Generally, we use forms as a way to capture sentiment from users or partners or customers. I even use forms frequently for internal folks who are maybe outside of our project team to get their input. And so what I can do is I can actually add forms. There we go. And I can create a new form or pull an existing form. But this is maybe a way that I share with my teammates the results on that form that as they're coming in. So I'm not pinning a form to get my teammates' reactions. I'm actually pinning a form so they can see the results and the insights. Pretty cool. So again, I did mention earlier, if you don't see apps like Agile Poly and CalendarBot in your Teams tenant, there's one workaround I just wanted to call out, which is adding a website tab. So let's see, there it is. You can actually add tools like this just as a website, and so they appear here and they get embedded. Might be worth considering, but again, it depends on what your IT permissions have been set to. The IT team has probably decided what's allowed and what's not. All right, moving on to phase 4. This is all about monitoring progress, and progress can be in the form of manual updates from peers, automated updates from my various tools, or data from different systems. And I'll show you some of the things I do every day on this front to monitor the progress of my my projects. So here we go. We're back. So I always start my day in the activity feed, and this will give me an idea of who's mentioned me and what do I need to do urgently. My peers are going to keep me on task. I actually just got a note from Patty a couple minutes ago about this task, and that showed up in my activity feed, and I'm going to address that right away. It helps me unblock my peers. So the other thing that I can do is I can actually set up proactive notifications so I know when certain things are done, like a ticket is created, a task is completed. So let me show you that. I'm going to go over here and search for Flow. There it is. Flow is now called Power Automate. It's an awesome tool from Microsoft. Here's an example. I have one in place where I get a message posted to Teams whenever a task is created in Planner. Pretty awesome. I actually designated, I want an individual message to come straight to me when someone in one of my plans makes a new task. I just want to keep an eye on new tasks. So this is an example of an automation that you might want to set up so that you keep tabs on your projects, and you can kind of orchestrate from that high level view. So there's Power Automate. These are really easy to set up. And the nice thing is, if you go to Power Automate, you can actually use a bunch of their templates. This was actually a template I built off of. I just connected my accounts and boom, I've got it. So think about automations and how those can help you. And then lastly, I keep data top of mind and easily accessible. And I do that by pinning certain Power BI dashboards to my channels. Let's go back over here. So here's an example. I've got 2 reports in here. One is the division sales chart that's in Power BI. And I want me and my teammates to have this at one click. I don't want to go into my bookmarks or go ask someone for the URL or dig through search or something. It's pinned. It's right here. I can see it. So I get these charts. I've got a sales trend report, which is a little more granular, and I can do some filtering on. These reports are critical to me, so I'm going to pin them. These are all related to this promo campaign. I'm going to pin them as tabs from Power BI so I can keep an eye on them. I'm probably checking them multiple times a day. Okay, let's finish up with this last step, which is sharing knowledge. This stage is designed basically to leverage all of the tasks and processes and people and feedback that you've collected throughout this project. There's a lot of information and expertise built up. But in order for this project to continue paying dividends after it's done, you want to make sure that that knowledge is logged and distributed and searchable. So you're going to want to decide where to log your notes and summaries. We'll talk about a few places where you can do that. And you're going to grab things like your meeting notes and links to files, that planning board in Trello or Planner, meeting recordings, key reports. It's all going to, you want to link to all of those from your notes, that knowledge base. And let's look at 2. One, I want to show you the wiki, which is a really simple way to do it. And then I'm going to show you 2 others. So the wiki tool, if you haven't seen it, I'll go over here. It's up there in the tabs. And here's an example of our meeting notes that were brought in. We've got links and action items and tables. So great way to just really simply make it visible to everyone. Everyone's collaborating in the wiki. So play with this if you haven't already. It's a really simple way of building that knowledge base. Okay, one other tool I wanted to show you is actually Confluence. Some of you might have heard of Confluence. It's a very popular knowledge-based tool from Atlassian. And you can see, I'm going to go back, it's here. Yeah, I actually added this tab from Confluence. It's a research and analysis tab where we've been keeping tabs on all kinds of stuff, team news and all kinds of things. This is straight out of Confluence. If you're using Confluence outside of Teams, it's really easy to bring it in. And one of the magical moments with Confluence is that I can actually grab certain knowledge into the conversation. So let's actually go here. This is our message extensions. There's Confluence right there. And maybe I'm going to search for decision. Yeah, perfect. So there it is. This is straight out of my knowledge base. It's an article that we wrote, a piece of knowledge or notes about this decision. And maybe I just want to say, Adele, take a look at this article. That's a great way of driving that knowledge forward and helping it live on. Now it's paying dividends even after the project is done. It's easily searchable and shareable. And let's not forget about SharePoint. We don't have time to go through it, but SharePoint can be a really incredible tool for logging knowledge and sharing it internally. So there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed walking through some of the project management process with me today. We chose kind of the core pillars. If there's anything I want you to take away from in project management, it's that it's not task management. This isn't about creating a list of tasks and a schedule of chores. This is actually about designing a process, connecting people, sharing knowledge. That's the true path to impact here.